video is sponsored by Squarespace.
This week, I've been hiding inside and not really working on the farm because we've been experiencing a heat wave. It's been over 100 degrees, but the sun is going down and it's actually really nice out here right now. So I thought it's perfect time to give you a July farm tour. We've been having really strange weather this year. It's actually been exceptionally cold. At this point on the farm, we're about 2 weeks behind of where we normally would be. So this heat wave that we're experiencing is a little bit of a blessing in disguise. But we also haven't really had very much to show you guys because nothing has really been happening because nothing has been growing because of the cold weather. But you know, we're finally getting some blooms, and so there's lots to share, especially in some of our garden beds that are perennials, like the ones behind me. These, they come back year after year, and you know, they're later than normal, but they still look amazing. One of the flowers that I absolutely love, you know, not only on the farm, but anywhere, is lilies. And we have a lot. At this point, the cooler is actually filled to the brim with lilies because I've done a big harvest, but I leave a few every year if they're too open by the time I come and pick them. Ideally, the way you want to pick a lily is like this. When it's starting to show some color, but it's not open at all, this is going to open up in the vase. But a lily like this, once it's open, they're very fragile. You touch them, then the petals, they all fall off so easily. So when they're like this, we just leave them on the plants. These are an Asiatic lily, so they're bright and colorful and they don't have much of a scent. They are great here on the farm because not everyone likes scented lilies, and the colors are super fun and super punchy. You know, the variety that you can get is just incredible. There's lots of pinks. You know, there isn't any pink blooming right now in this patch, but it's amazing what you can get. The other thing that's really nice about the Asiatics, because normally the lilies that you see used by florists are actually oriental lilies. The oriental lilies are a little bit bigger and they're scented and they come in less colors. But we have those on the farm too, but I love having the Asiatics because they actually bloom 2 weeks earlier than the orientals. So having both of them planted means that we get, you know, a 3 to 4 week window of lily blooms, and you know, every year they come back. Lilies are amazing for us because they're a focal. They're really important in the bouquets, but you can't just have only focals, and so there's a lot of other stuff planted in these perennials that really fills in the gaps. This just started blooming, you know, 2 days ago. It's been really loving the heat. This is a bee balm. And bee balms are amazing because they're perennial, they're drought tolerant, they're cold tolerant, they love the weather here. They bloom really reliable, really consistent. Bees love them, they're gorgeous, the blooms last forever, and they work great as a cut flower. So, I don't know. Can't really go wrong with them. They smell really good too. They have almost like a bergamot scent to them. Another great perennial flower that we have for this time of year is phlox. So there's annual phlox and perennial phlox, or garden phlox they're sometimes called, and we just grow the perennial one. This is David, which smells amazing. It has this great scent to it. Really beautiful, really strong, really hardy, white. I love these. I think they look beautiful in bouquets. They add this like nice little punch. The size of the flowers is really attractive. So this is great. And last year was the first year that we really picked heavily off of it. And one of the things that I found is, you know, because the plant is so tall, when I did a harvest of the stem I like, there was still lots of plant, and it actually sent up secondary blooms later on in the season. My favorite phlox is David, which I know by name, but we got more colors too, and I don't actually know the names of these other varieties, but they're really fun to have the mix of colors. So we got this pink that's in 2 tones, and then this gorgeous, really, really vibrant, purpley fuchsia kind of color. We have a couple other varieties. I think in total we planted 5 or 6 different names, with like 100 of them being David and 100 of them being a mix. So, you know, they are great to have this time of year. I haven't been down this bed in a few days because, as I said, it's so hot. I haven't been outside. But it's amazing with the heat. This is a patch of liatris, and this had not really been growing, not really doing much all year because it just kind of waiting for some warmer temperatures to come. I thought that this was going to need at least another 2 or 3 weeks before it would be blooming, but after, you know, 4 days of heat, it sent up these flower spikes really quickly, and they've already started to bloom. So that'll be exciting for this weekend to be able to start picking some of this. It's one of my favorite things to work with. It's such just like a simple, easy spike to put in the arrangements. Another thing that has matured really quickly in this little blip of heat is the solidago, or goldenrod. This is like such a fun filler for us to work with. It's just, you know, really beautiful little yellow flowers, and, you know, just really, really fun. They add a lot of color, but also really nice formal structure. So these are gonna bloom probably this week with how developed they are. And last year we were picking on this for 3 weeks too. So I'm excited to have all my favorites back. More perennials. This is a patch of scabiosa, Fama scabiosa specifically. The blooms get these nice big formal shape instead of the annual scabiosa, which are a little bit more small. And we have it in white and also a blue. This is the 3rd year these have been blooming, and they're a short-lived perennial. So that means that they're gonna kind of eventually fizzle out. A lot of people had told me that they kind of only get 2 years. The first year they get a few blooms off of it. Second year they get a lot of blooms off of it, and then the plants kind of disappear. So I wasn't making any plans for having them this year, but I'm really excited to see what it looks like, because I feel like the production on this so far is as strong as the production was last year in the 2nd year. So that kind of bodes well for it lasting, you know, maybe even into year 4 or 5 for the farm. Another perennial that I'm really excited about going into year 3 is the Euringium or sea holly, and this variety is specifically glitter, so it has like the clusters of the smaller blooms instead of the big large ones. And this, you know, I'm really happy with it. In year 1 it didn't really produce anything. Last year each plant kind of sent up a stem or 2, which I was still pretty happy with, but here in year 3, you know, kind of when I eyeball these plants, there's kind of 2, 3, 4 stems per, you know, and nice good height on this. We also have this in a white, but as you can maybe tell, things are a little weedy in this garden. We haven't weeded this section at all. It's been probably a year since the last time we weeded it, because we also didn't weed this in the fall. So some things are getting buried, some things are not looking like how we normally like them to look. But I think this is also a good example of just how powerful perennials are. They can kind of hold their own against weeds, whereas, you know, the annual flowers, you really need to be on top of the maintenance for them. So, you know, they've kind of saved our butt here. There's one last perennial that I'm really excited in this garden bed. A few years ago, I bought a couple mint plants, an apple mint, because they looked really pretty at the local nursery. And I was like, sure, I'll throw some in. And I also bought a few, I'm pretty sure the name of it is Artemis. And they were variegated and pretty. I was like, oh, that's kind of a pretty greenery. I'll give that a try. I know that both of those are the types of things that spread and can be very aggressive, very invasive in your home garden, but because we pick everything so heavily, it's not necessarily always a bad thing on the flower farm for things to be really spreading, because things that really spread are just things that give us more to pick. So last year I picked quite heavily. This is a greenery that was kind of available to me in a window when I don't normally have stuff. It was kind of available, you know, like end of July, beginning of August, when some of our other annual greeneries aren't around and some of our other perennial greeneries are finishing. So I'm really excited that behind me, I basically have a jungle of these two plants trying to outcompete each other and try to take over this entire garden, because at some point I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna mow them down, and it's gonna mean easy greenery for me without any effort at all. More perennials! This is our second main planting of perennial flowers, and everything's really coming into bloom, so I'm excited about that too. Behind me, first bloom, loving this heat. This is something that I obsess about all the time because I don't think a lot of people know about it, and it's amazing. This is Sunny Days, and this is a perennial sunflower. And yeah, these flowers are so fun, so pretty. They work for a cut flower, but they also look gorgeous in the garden. Most years this plant, because it likes heat, it is a sunflower, it's quite tall. This year, you know, I don't think we're gonna get the same production and the same height on it, but it's perennial. It comes back year after year after year, and even though we pick it like crazy, it's still spreading, it's still doing well. This, I think, will be here forever. And then another of our favorites is this Shasta daisy. I'm pretty sure the name of this variety is double daisy. And this, you know, it only blooms. We only get to use the flowers for usually 2 weeks. But they're so beautiful, they're so fun, and they grow so easily. The Shasta daisies are just great, easy, low maintenance plants. I always try to get more of these, but they're really hard to find. I think because they're so beautiful, because they're so popular, they sell out really fast. But yeah, no, I really like them. But if favorite perennial was determined based on how many of that specific plant I grow, then my favorite perennial would be Yarrow, because I have so many of them, and you know, fair enough, I love it. I am obsessed with it. We grow a whole variety of colors. Every color I can get my hands on, I want. We grow the wild white, which, you know, we dug out of our lawn originally. This grows everywhere, but because we water it and we care for it, it does really well. And then we have a bunch of the pinks. This, I'm pretty sure, was a summer berries variety that we started from seed. Normally there's a few other colors in here, but at this point it's kind of self-selected itself to be mostly pinks, which works amazing. The pinks are such a great versatile color in bouquets. Yarrow, it also comes in these vibrant yellows. Achilles, is that? I don't know why, but I can't remember the name of this variety right now. But like, one of my favorites for color is this variety, and the name of this is Terracotta. I love this. When it first opens, it's more that true terracotta color, and then it kind of fades into like a mustard. But yeah, I'm always amazed when I pick the Yarrow and I have like a handful of them all together, just how different it can look. Well, it's, you know, the exact same plant. So if I was to grow only one thing, it might be Yarrow. And then the other thing that I have up here is greeneries, and a bunch of these greeneries are kind of going into year 4, and I'm really happy with them. All the greeneries in this area I started from seed myself. This one was a seed that was labeled as a mountain mint, and this is a really pretty mint that grows up, and once it flowers, it is a great greenery in bouquets. This here is an oregano, just kind of a basic garden oregano, and I pick this when it flowers. And I use it mostly for kind of these flower stems. But, you know, the first year that I planted this, even though it said it was going to be tall enough to be able to use as a greenery, I was really unsure because the plant kind of only ever got this tall. And every year since, it's been taller and taller. At this point, you know, these stems are massive. This is, you know, a really, really great filler for us, and it kind of keeps going. All of these perennial greens in here, I often pick off of them for like 2 months straight. This here is Russian tarragon, and I had the same experience with this. First year was fairly short, didn't know what it was gonna be, except for at this point, maybe it's too big. Every year it gets taller, and like I don't actually know how tall this plant gets, because it kind of hits 6 feet and then it gets so heavy it falls over. Most of the time when I'm using this as a greenery, like here's an example, this is just the plant falling over. These fall over and then it sends up side branches, and it's the side branches that I'm cutting off. It's not even the main stems that I'm using for the greens, because this thing is just so massive. Every year I realize how important it is to have those greens. When I originally started the seeds and planted that greenery area, the volume that we were doing in flower sales was significantly lower. Most of the stuff was actually planted when we were still doing mostly vegetables on the farm. So that felt like more greens than I would ever need. But at this point, we're doing buckets and buckets and buckets of the greenery every single week, and it's nice to have consistent greenery to work with. So now when I plant perennials for greenery, I do it a little bit differently. Behind me is a half bed, 25 feet of bee balm that I started from seed. This one is, as you can tell, a lot taller than the perennial bed one that I showed you. And the flowers on this are a lighter pink color and a little bit less formal of a flower structure. And this is how I like to do greenery now. This, unlike those other greens I showed you that I can pick off of for about 2 months, this I only really pick off of for about 3 weeks. Once the flowers kind of start to finish, the greens look a little ratty, and you know, I'm on to something else. But having this amount of greenery and having these nice big stems, because these are multi-branching, each one of them come up and they have lots and lots that cluster into a bouquet. Having something like this makes it so much easier to design my bouquets, to harvest my greenery, and just to work with everything. So this year, what we've actually done is, you know, and you can barely see it because they're so small, but we've extended this bed. This is gonna now be an entire bed of that same bee balm. You know, this one behind me is into its 3rd year, so this is not really gonna do much this year, but next year it's gonna be nice and productive. Having this is gonna be amazing. It means that however much greenery we want in those 3 weeks when this is going to be there on the farm. And with perennials, if you don't pick it, kind of doesn't matter. It just strengthens the plant for next year. And then here in front of me is another bed that is a perennial greenery again. This is anise hyssop, and you know, this is an entire 50-foot bed. Yet again, this isn't gonna do anything this year, but is gonna be there for me next year. And the reason why I planted this is because we already have a bed and I loved it so much. So let's go look at that next. Here behind me is a 50-foot bed of anise hyssop that we planted really early last spring. So it actually produced in August and September of last year. The anise hyssop, we love it. It gets these purple flowers. This is the point at which we pick it. Once all these kind of greeneries bloom, usually the greenery holds really strong. It doesn't wilt in the vase. But so this bed here probably has 600 plants. There's an insane amount of hyssop in here. And I picked off of it, and I picked off of it, and I picked off of it. And it was really easy and really lovely to work with. Customers really like it. It has scent. This is kind of, if I could just use this forever, I would. The reason why we hadn't really invested into anise hyssop previously is that it's not very winter hardy here. About 50 of the plants that we've done in the past have died over the winter, and it just always seemed like a lot of work to keep trying to establish a patch of this and having it fail. But one flower that also does that we definitely felt was worth it is feverfew. And the thing that I found with the feverfew is it actually, having half of it dies is a blessing in disguise, because every year I plant seedlings to replace those dead plants, and it actually gives me a stagger. The plants that overwintered will bloom, 3 weeks earlier than the new planting, and so because of that I get this much larger picking window. And the same thing happens with the hyssop, except for I don't have to start seedlings on this. It self-seeds itself.
Out of the way, Bo.
And speaking of things that self-seed, I did not realize what a weed these bells of Ireland can be. This is an entire bed of bells of Ireland where we didn't plant any bells of Ireland. We just happened to have had some that grew here last year. No complaints. I love this flower. These are incredible. They smell amazing. If the weather was a little bit better, they would be growing a lot taller and a lot happier. But here, even they prefer cool, wet weather. We get hot, dry weather. So they don't grow as healthy as they should. But what we discovered last year, the first year that we kind of had a lot of success with it, is when they bloom like this and they're short and pathetic and you can't use them, just wait. They keep growing and they keep blooming. They kind of never stopped. We didn't get blooms out of it super early, and same with this. They're quite short. I can't use this yet, but a month from now, they're gonna look pretty much the same, and I'm gonna have a lot of a really fun greenery to use. Down on this end of the farm, we have a bunch of stuff that doesn't really look like anything, but it will. So here beside me, we have 2 beds of Strawflowers, a whole mix of colors planted in here. Last year, we had 3 full beds of Strawflowers, which was amazing, but we grew them just for dried flower heads. Now there is more dry flower heads than anyone could ever use. I have a lifetime supply. And so this year, these ones are gonna be for going into the bouquets. So it's a little late, it's a little slow, but come September, October, these are gonna be some really pretty blooms, and they look great. They're a really fun flower, and the texture that they get really works well for some of our fall designs. Behind me here is our peony bed. There is over 1,000 peonies planted in here now. Some of these, the majority, like these ones here, these were actually planted in the fall. So these plants have been in the ground for only 6 months and are pretty much brand new plants. But despite that, they're looking nice, they're looking healthy, and as these grow over the year and over the years, they're just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they produce so many stems. So having this big huge patch of peonies is pretty incredible. Let me show you what some of our second-year-old plants look like, just to give you an idea of what this will be next year. Here is the patch that we planted the year before. These are all 2-year-old peonies, and these look a lot smaller and a lot shorter than they would have, because we basically picked half of the plant off, because we went through here a month and a half ago and we picked every single flower pretty much on these plants. So when they were blooming, the greenery was up to here. These looked really incredible, and I think even with them having been picked, you can see just how much they grow in a single season. The theme of this video is kind of being perennials. As I'm going through, there kind of isn't really, the farm is becoming more and more only perennial as the years go on. So back here is a new planting, a new section of the farm that is going to be all perennial. It's not all filled in. There's a heat wave, so we stopped planting. But we do already have a half bed of delphinium, and in the end, there's gonna be 2 full beds of delphinium. Down at the far end, we have a new type of yarrow that we're experimenting with. It's called Peter Cottontail, and it almost looks like a feverfew or a baby's breath. It's really pretty, and I'm excited to see what it's gonna do next year. And then over on the other side here, we have a ton of sedum. So sedum has been incredible for us, because it is something that will survive the frost. So we have some sedum planted up at the top of the farm that we kind of save every year for, you know, mid-October after we've had a frost to still have something that we can use in the bouquets. But the thing that is great about sedum is it makes a really nice filler, it makes a really nice greenery. You kind of see it here. These are baby plants, so they're not doing much, but it gets these little green seed head buds. These get to be like quite large once the plants get established, and they send up like, you know, 20 stems of these kind of things. And this you can use at any time in the year as a really nice filler, a really nice greenery. So putting this huge bed in is gonna mean kind of, yet again, another year-round greenery that's gonna be available on the farm. Something that I could put in the bouquets every week of the year. This is on the very edge of the farm because one of the things we found out last year is sedum is drought tolerant, but also sedum doesn't like a lot of water. Our yarrow, which is planted right beside the sedum up at the top, it was really struggling from lack of water. It was getting covered in aphids due to it not getting the amount of water that it needed. So last year we finally watered it. It was amazing, I was super happy. We found the right amount to water yarrow and we rotted out a bunch of the sedums. So this is kind of away from everything else so that it can be on its own specific special watering cycle of not getting very much water. In the main farm, we have some summer stuff planted that's, you know, like I said, it's been cold. Things are behind schedule. So we have a couple beds of marigolds, and then we also have a bunch of status planted over here that's, you know, it's gonna be a while until they start producing anything. We even had some plantings that, because of the cold weather, they kind of just never grew. But since the theme of this video is apparently perennials are the best, you know, I want to show you guys these beds here because yet again, this is the perennials on the farm. So this is a bed of mixed different rudbeckias. There's a few of the scabiosa that I've mixed in here as well. And these, you know, they're blooming later than normal, but the perennials, they don't care what it is. Too cold, they grow slowly. Too hot, they bloom early. They kind of, you know, they're really, really forgiving. So it's been incredible to have them on the farm this year. And then over on this side with the feverfew, I love the feverfew. This is something that, you know, I wish I could have year round. I wish I could put this in every single bouquet. You know, it only is kind of available in this early summer time of year. But having the two beds, you know, I've just been really loving it, and the production has just been incredible on it this year. I like hanging out and just staring at the little field of white. That's pretty much it, but we have to, before we end this video, we have to show you guys what the cooler is looking like because it's pretty ridiculous. I know not everyone likes lilies, but when you have an entire cooler full of a rainbow of lilies, it's hard not to enjoy. It looks pretty incredible in here. Because of the heat, they were all opening up really quickly, so we made sure to get out there and pick whatever we could. So I think there's gonna be a lot of lilies in the bouquets this weekend. One of the challenges as a business is having a way to sell a large volume of something. Having this many lilies is amazing, but it doesn't really help you if you can't sell them. With lilies, you know, maybe this isn't the solution, but with other products, having a website can make a huge difference for how much product you can move. Our sponsor, Squarespace, is someone who can really help you with that.
Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your terms. I love how easy they make it for me to build a website. Squarespace Blueprint AI is a guided design system that helps you build your dream website. And Fluid Engine, the next generation website editor, lets you customize every design detail. Whether you're building an online store or offering courses, Squarespace has you and me covered. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/youcan'teatthegrass to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.